So everything happens for a reason, right? Including you seeing this right now. So in this moment, right here, right now, us connecting, it's just because we happen to be alive at the same time, right? It's even if you scroll away, come back later. It's all part of it, and the idea that our minds can only handle what our souls. I mean, our minds can only focus on what our souls are ready to handle, right? You can't help someone that doesn't think they need help, type thing. So if we focus on this stuff together, that's the highest form in spirituality, is building this connection. So in that light, having said that, happy Thursday. Thank you for being here with me. This will be the 8th video that we do in this chain of conversations, but I'm gonna work on making this as quick as possible, because I think this video is very important, and it starts with the hardest thing we ever have to do as individuals, right? That's truly learn how to love ourselves in the moment. There's some people that never do that, and they die with regret. It's a spiritual practice that everything that we've been through, everything that we've suffered from, we come to a point that we truly learn to love ourselves for the pros, the cons, and the genuine love takes over, where we now know that everything happens for a reason. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And life just becomes very different from that point on. So where we're born, the families that we're born into, that's not random, right? Spirituality teaches us that when our parents come together, that spark that creates our heartbeat, that's our soul choosing them. And why does this happen? It's because it's our soul giving our parents' souls the opportunity for the ultimate correction of their own, right? It's the challenges that they need from having us that will allow them to become the best versions of themselves, not just ourselves. Because spirituality also says for us to become the best version of ourselves, we have to know what it is to be a parent. So that cycle, it's a little different in the world today, because if we're going to recognize that it's 2025, some people genuinely don't believe that they're meant to be parents. It's probably because the world is $324 trillion in debt. That's the global debt, not just the 9 trillion in the United States. There's 195 nations with flags that have swords that are fighting. 4,000, 5,000 religions, 7,100 plus languages. It's 8.2 billion people on the planet today that are all trying to figure it out. And all these religions, all these languages, all the fighting, it's simple when you say things like, if life were easy, everyone would be good at it. And then there's things like, anything in life that's worth having doesn't come easy. And that's the point, right? This chaos forces us to grow. It's an opportunity for us to rise above our animalistic instincts, and step into our soul and connect, right? And the whole religion versus spirituality, there's an expression I'm using a lot lately, is it's easier to lie to someone than it is to convince them they have been lied to. So I'm bringing up probably the harshest, deepest truths, where essentially the harshest truth is better than the sweetest lie, in my humble opinion. So just remember that emotion and logic cannot coexist simultaneously, right? Emotion can bring the challenge to the forefront, but we have to allow logic to re-enter the conversation to find out the solution to those challenges. Let the emotions settle, go. That's, married couples that are arguing and fighting emotionally, take 5-10 minutes and come back to the conversation with logic to come up with a solution. Because in spirituality versus religion gives us answers to questions that we don't deserve to have the answer to, and spirituality shows us that that's okay, right? We don't treat each other in a way that's humanly possible in order to deserve the answer to those questions of where we come from, what's our creator, what happens after death. We've created thousands of versions of God, of a creator, where the oldest language we know, it tells us that God is in nature, that nature is the divine creation itself. It's in the number 86 in Hebrew Gematria. You can look it up. It's right now the world is in this uproar because a radical religion, it gives millions of good Muslims a bad name. And there's Christians and Catholics that say Jesus is the Son of God, but we all can agree he was raised Jewish. Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, all these different systems are trying to paint the same picture with a different brush. So this concept might seem wild to some of you. It's just part of my spiritual journey. Part of this journey is realizing that maybe some of my ideas aren't really even my ideas. Was I just present enough in the right place at the right time, to receive the light as this energy that pushes me down a path, maybe a path I was meant to walk or meant to think about, help somebody in that circumstance that I was present. Because if that works for you, then, did Mark Zuckerberg really create this big conglomerate that is Facebook, or did he just catch the light of the spark to create a social network to where you could poke somebody, which would be a nice way of trying to find a partner in a college that's spread to a marketplace today? Did Jeff Bezos build the largest empire in history because he's some genius, or did he just have the courage to sell books with the idea out of his garage and $245,000 of an investment from his parents? Right? It's Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all these guys were just present enough to catch that spark, that idea, and execute. That means it could happen to any of us, right? If we're awake, if we're alive, if we're present enough to piece all these ideas together and execute, nothing is a coincidence. We have to get to a point where we can agree on certain parts of history. 135 CE, which is verifiable. Caesar Hadrian changed Judea to Palestina. This is the act of man, ego, fear, greed. This is not a God. This is the fear that the Hebrew nation, it's now they're Zionists. They were once Jews. They were once Israelites. The Hebrew nation refused to celebrate false gods because the code within the Hebrew language told them that's not the way things work, right? It's not Pharaoh, it's not Caesar, it's not the Spanish Inquisition where we're celebrating clergymen and false gods and showering people in gold for promises of the afterlife or to wash away our sins. Nature and God are divine, God is within us. All of these things that Jesus preached, this is teachings of spirituality before Kabbalah was even a word, because Kabbalah doesn't become a word until 12th, 13th century. The Zohar is written in the 13th century. All of that stuff ties in. Or, this is why Judaism isn't even a religion, right? Judaism goes back to the Hebrews and the Hebrew people. It's a lineage that begins with a language predating all religions. And it's the secrets that I believe are worth lying for, killing for, dying for in the world today. Because Israel, the Hebrew nation, right? It's surrounded by 22 Arab nations, flags with swords. The only democracy in the Middle East is being attacked, and not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And this is where we have to allow emotion to leave the conversation and logic to come in, because these people are being accused of genocide. The only people on earth that have fewer numbers alive today than before 1945 are being accused of genocide. Where's the logic, right? Most of us speak English because of Britain's colonization. The Muslim population is in the billions. Where's the logic? It's when you hear these mirrored lies, these projections that Israel's the aggressor, that the Jews are the colonizers. How many people speak Hebrew? How long can this story last when we can fact check this in seconds instead of just believing the first thing that we're told? This is why spirituality has to be the way forward. There are 2 million Muslims in concentration camps today in China. There are real genocides happening in Yemen, Congo, South Sudan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia. The media only points at Israel. You know, divide and conquer works. Division is a very, very real psychological warfare strategy. And one of the greatest lies ever told is that the Jews are the chosen people. There's no chosen people. There's just a chosen species among the animal kingdom, and that's humanity. Humanity has been chosen to elevate the animal kingdom through spirituality. The Quran is 600 years after the Bible. The Bible is written decades after Jesus is even killed. You know, it's the first man in all of these religions is still Adam. Shalom and salam mean the same thing. Amen is the same in all those languages as well. It's the word alphabet comes from Aleph Bet, which is the Hebrew language. If you can see that all this is connected, that it always has been, right? Maybe we're just meant to wake up and be seeing it right now. It's very possible. Religion, politics, all of these forces once served their purpose in time. There was a time that created the image of Jesus, and Jesus has become the most influential person in history. He was Jewish. The Jewish calendar is 5785. The world that doesn't believe that says it's 2025. And this is a man-made reset, BC versus AD. Man and ego and greed took a Jewish teacher who taught Kabbalistic teachings, spiritual teachings before Kabbalah even had a name, and turned him into something else. The Immaculate Conception, the Son of God. There are scriptures in the Bible that point to his Kabbalistic knowledge. The divine is within us. Love and one are the same thing. I mean, the Hebrew gematria, the fact that they both equal 13 is the secret code that I'm referring to. The tree of life, the branches that he extends, this is the 10 Sephirot. And he was literally preaching Kabbalah that they turned into churches. Came books. You know, his message was monetized. His likeness was branded. And it was built on the very Hebrew code that is meant to free us all. It's even the Prophet Muhammad acknowledges Jesus. It's just the radical part of that religion that has been preaching for a few thousand years to overwhelm the infidels by strength in numbers. You know, it's the terrible stories of childhood marriage and multiple wives and having all these children to literally overwhelm the infidel in numbers. They don't even try to hide it. You know, it's Islam literally means to submit, and that's the opposite of freedom. So when it comes to the battle for the soul of humanity, you know, it's not just about politics. It's not even just about religion. This is the ultimate battle of, say, ego versus soul. You know, it's fear versus love, hate versus love, illusion versus truth. And every single one of us gets to choose what side we fight for. Every word, every thought, every action in the Hebrew code shows us plain as day. Messiah is not one person. The Messiah is Mashiach in Hebrew, and it is meant to be when we all become one, not one person. And in the Gematria, Mashiach equals 358. In the same code, in the same number, the same value of 358 is the word Nachash, which is serpent. Serpent, Nachash, 358, Mashiach, Messiah, 358. This is the code that symbolizes it's a choice within all of us. You choose ego or you choose soul. We choose ego to divide or we choose soul to become one. It is when all of us make the choice to become one. Not one person, not a brand, no clergymen, no middlemen. The connection between you and your creator is free. And the most information we can receive through light is when we connect and believe the same thing of the intention of building. And that's really what I believe the future of humanity depends on. And it's now. It's why you're still here, still listening right now. And all these politicians, all these religions, they've served their purpose. The 6,000 years we had of recorded human history is potentially coming to an end with this information being spread. So some of my best friends, they're seeing this, they're hearing me, they know my history, they know what I've done, they know what I've been through. But to get to this point, it's too much, and then in the next breath, we may be on to something, because it really feels like the world is waking up. It's the psychological warfare. It's the constant media manipulation that, with 30 years of internet, humanity can trace our existence back. Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Judea, all the 7 continents were once connected, and over thousands of years, they separated, and all these groups of people grew up for generations believing what they knew as their truth was the only possible truth, because that's all they knew. Fast forwarding to this moment, hearing these words, in my humble opinion, this is exactly why we are here now at this moment in time. Share what comes to thought, what comes to you in the moment. If we are connecting through these intentions of love, it's enough fighting fire with fire. Fighting fire with fire only spreads the flame. And I see so many of what I consider brothers and sisters getting mad, getting angry, and that's the devil in the details of distraction. That's those energies of misery loves company is intended by ego and by the forces of fear and greed to fight, to argue, to divide until emotions take over and people just fight and kill, like history shows us. There's real suffering in the Middle East. There's real suffering all over the world. It was 20% of people in Gaza that didn't support Hamas. Now it's closer to 50% in Gaza that don't support Hamas. The Houthis, Hezbollah, it's ISIS, all of these groups that we know are committing genocide, that we know in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Congo, South Sudan, Afghanistan, all over. We have to stop letting the world convince us that one country, that one politician, that one religion is the enemy. The only enemy is hate. The only enemy are the forces of ego, fear, and greed. Those are the forces that destroy. It's the fact that the only way to fight them is to connect instead of divide. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you for pausing your busy day to reflect on what this conversation has become, because with shared intention, 8.2 billion souls and a paradigm shift in energy could just change the planet overnight. It's all of these politicians, all these governments, the organized religions, they don't stand a chance at controlling free minds if we start choosing love over fear. There are people spending billions of dollars to erase history, to teach hate, to promote hate. That money's wasted if we stop listening. That money is wasted if we stop buying into the narrative of hate. This is the conversation that deserves to keep going. This is the story that deserves to keep going. This is the conversation. Thank you. Happy Thursday.